You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns.
Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on a journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Mick, a marketer, Reiki master, and prepper.
And I'm Jen, a former lawyer, now yoga instructor, and lover of all things wellness. So, like us, you're on this thing we call a spiritual journey, and you're learning about crystals, manifestation, and most importantly, yourself. But have you considered that there may be parts of your spirituality that could be considered problematic? In this episode, we're getting into concepts within New Age spirituality that can be a slippery slope to causing more harm than good.
But before we get into that, we want to remind you guys to sign up for our mailing list. We have helpful tips, content about things like astrology, book recommendations, and whatever else just happens to be on our mind at the time. We even announce events and discounts on merch. So sign up using the show description link. All right, let's begin as we always do with a breathwork meditation to put us into a mindful place.
Okay. Find a comfortable seat. You can always lie down. And today we're going to put both hands on our belly, right below our rib cage to our solar plexus chakra. It's the chakra of taking action, of empowerment, your own will to go out and seize the day and live your life. All right, take a deep inhale through your nose. Feel your belly push into your hands. And exhale that breath out through your mouth. Let's do that together. Inhale through your nose. Hold at the top. And maybe stick out your tongue as you exhale out through your mouth. Let's do one more of those together. Inhale through your nose. Hold. Let yourself make a sound. Stick out your tongue. Relax your jaw. Exhale that breath out through your mouth. Go ahead and seal your lips. And allow yourself to breathe normally. Match the length of your inhales to your exhales. Settle into this moment. I'd like you to envision a yellow ball of light directly below your hands. And allow that to represent the power of you. The solar plexus represents the right to act, our free will, our ability to take action. And it just so happens to be around our gut, what we may call our intuition, trusting your gut. How can you honor yourself and trust your ability to take action for yourself? If you start to feel any negative self-talk bubble up, just gently give yourself grace and come back to your breath. take a deep inhale, filling yourself with gratitude for your solar plexus chakra and where it's gotten you right up into this very moment in time. And exhale any lingering doubt in yourself, in your ability to go after anything that you would like to go after. And I'd like to finish with an affirmation. You can repeat it to yourself in your mind or out loud. I am empowered. All right, let's get on with the show.
Thanks as usual, Jen. I love that one.
Thank you. Let's jump into the main topic. Today we're talking problematic spirituality. Mick and I, we don't necessarily label our spirituality, like put a label on it. But for today's episode, we're going to work with the general label of New Age spirituality, which as we get into like the definition of it, you'll see where it's kind of a catch-all for a lot of things. But New Age spirituality is a diverse and often loosely defined contemporary spiritual movement characterized by an eclectic blend of metaphysical beliefs, self-help practices, and a focus on personal transformation, often drawing from various mystical, esoteric, and Eastern traditions. It typically emphasizes concepts such as holistic healing, spiritual evolution, and the power of the individual to manifest their reality.
Yeah. So I definitely want to emphasize that we try to stay away from labeling our spirituality. I've heard other folks who are in kind of the spirituality space say things like, there's really more than like a handful of religions, right? Like there's 7+ billion religions. Like everyone's own individual relationship with the divine is their religion, right?
I love that.
So, it's kind of hard though for me to say, well, my spiritual beliefs are blah, 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 and be able to have a somewhat terse conversation, right? You want to be able to simplify things when you're talking to folks. So, we got to use labels sometimes to be able to effectively communicate with others. So anyway, what we're trying to bucket under New Age spirituality includes a lot of the things that we've discussed before on the podcast, right? So crystals, tarot cards, human design, working with the moon, herbalism, meditation, energy work, and as Jen said, manifestation.
And on and on and on and on and on.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's just my algorithm on all of my socials or living in LA, but New Age spirituality seems to be everywhere. Beyonce famously charged her crystals in a full moon. I saw a video of will.i.am. Like, when's the last time you heard from will.i.am?
I don't know, man.
But he was talking about like quantum jumping, like embodiment work, where I think basically his options at the time when he was growing up was to like join a gang. And like that was it. But he was like, no, I don't live in this neighborhood and I don't have to join this gang and I can buy my mom. I bought my mom a house. Like he was doing that as a kid. And I guess the quantum universe said, let's get it started.
Okay.
So it's gotten to the point where we're starting to hear people on the street talking about it. I've seen, and even like you think it might be just like women and like these whimsical women or weird men with locks. But I see regular schmegular people wearing crystals all the time. And so, yes, it feels like it's everywhere. Like there's a little bit of it with a lot of people. And at this point, it feels like talking about meditation. Like, do you meditate? Oh, I like this app. I like that app.
Yeah.
That feels more common than people talking about Wednesday night Bible study.
That's real. That's real. And just something to point out. You ain't gotta have dreads to be a spiritual bro, because as my little baby would say, Daddy ain't got no hair.
Daddy ain't got no hair. He got a little bit of hair on his mouth. That's what our baby says. Anyway, the data also supports it. Also, quick question. Is anybody still going to Vacation Bible School? Because I feel like everybody was going to Vacation Bible School in the 90s and like...
I didn't see a flyer, an email, nothing posted on the message board at the coffee shop, nothing calling for Vacation Bible School.
Did you go to Vacation Bible School?
Of course I went to Vacation Bible School.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I went to 3 Vacation Bible Schools a summer. I went with my grandma on my mama's side, on my daddy's side, and our church as well.
It was free childcare.
It was. Well, it was at nighttime.
Oh, they did y'all dirty.
But we also did church. I also did church summer camp.
Our Vacation Bible School was during the day. It was like, we're going to drop you off there. You get a little snack, a little prayer.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of that too. Anyways, I digress. The data, though, supports like what we're seeing. Like less people going to Vacation Bible School, less people going to Bible study. In the past 25 years, 40 million people have left the Christian church specifically. Like I ended up on some website that tracks, like it's like political polls, but just tracking the church. Like they have generational data, like what are millennials into? What are Gen Zers into? And like the churches that have closed and all of this stuff. So a lot of churches never recovered from the pandemic. And then they keep like real estate information on this too. Like there's like all this data that somebody is like going over with a fine tooth comb to figure out what's going on in the Christian church. And since 2000, weekly attendance has sharply declined. And I feel like a lot of people who listen to our show and even like us and like, you know, our friends and stuff, like we'll talk about how often they were at church. You know, I think there's a spectrum, but like you were at least there on Sundays and Wednesdays. You might be there on Saturday for like Girl Scout or something else. But like, baby, the GPS is like, no, I don't know her. You're going where? To church?
So, you know what that makes me think of, right? So Jen and I, about maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, we took our girls to church here in LA. It was our first time going to, actually our second time going to church in LA. But the sermon at that church, there were several mentions of New Age spirituality. Like he was like mad. Like he was like, y'all want to go listen to somebody on TikTok telling you can manifest your reality, da 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 da. But then proceeded to talk about the law of attraction, but like sprinkle Jesus on it. But I'm not gonna go there. The point is, they see the data. They know where folks are going, and he is a representative of, I'm sure, a lot of pastors who are like trying to push back against it, right, and reclaim some of these people who have left. So that was my immediate thought when I saw some of this data come out.
You want to hold on to a crystal, but what about the Bible? You know,
big mad. All right.
I forgot about that.
I didn't. So yeah, we're seeing folks leave church, I think, with more questions than answers. They're trying to figure out, you know, what's going on in the universe? How can I improve my situation? And really trying to find themselves somewhere kind of in this non-religion of what is called New Age spirituality. And, you know, I think there are a lot of reasons that this can appeal to people.
Yeah, I think one major thing that can appeal to people is empowerment. Shout out to the breathwork meditation at the top of the episode. In New Age spirituality, life doesn't happen so much to you. I think growing up in the Christian church, you are told that anything that happens, good or bad, is God's will, even if it's terrible, and that you ultimately have to be grateful because God is all powerful, all knowing, and that this has to be somehow for your good, and that you wouldn't get more than you could bear, and that like you're kind of supposed to be like, yeah, I'm strong enough to handle this like really shitty thing that's happening to me. And it really takes it can take a lot of your agency away, like your ability to show up and like have a say in what your life is.
Mm.
And I think that in New Age spirituality, at least for me, when I started my spiritual journey, it was like, no, like you are an active participant in your life. I think you couple that with sometimes feeling like the weight of the world and like feeling certain cards stacked against you. It felt very empowering to kind of say like, no, I am like, I'm also a player. Like I'm not a spectator watching my life unfold. I am part of this exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. I also feel like there is this idea of like greater access within kind of this new age spirituality. Like I think for me, when I was growing up, traditional religion kind of felt like, I don't know, I had to like go through others to access spirit. Like I had to either go through the pastor, and I mean, I know I've talked to my Catholic friends, they felt like they had to go through like, you know, the priest and go through confession and like
and tell all their business.
Yeah, it was like it was all about like going through someone else to kind of reach spirit. And I think it's just like very different in a lot of the teachings that we've been reading about, right? There's just this ability that you can directly access the universe through like your ancestors, right? Or spirit guides, or even directly talk to angels, which we talked about in our angel episode. I didn't really understand the concept of angels very much in church, and that I could call on them and that I could like actually have a relationship with them, right? And even your higher self, right? Like you can literally speak to a higher form of yourself, like when you kind of get into this space. So yeah, I just also think there's this a greater sense of acceptance, right? I can talk to people who are in this space about like super weird dreams that I've had, or like other beings or aliens or whatever, and like there aren't these like strange looks or like, whoa, you're doing some stuff that we don't really get down with. Like, you know, there's a lot more like open acceptance, I'd say.
Yeah. I think another big one for me in the move from like traditional religion to more new age spirituality is that there's a lot less guilt, shame, and fear. Like those are things that you're actively working to strip yourself of, versus traditional religions relying a lot on guilt, shame, and fear and getting believers to follow like the moral code of the religion, act a certain way, have a certain sexuality, show up in a certain way. And I think there are some churches that use guilt, shame, and fear to hold their people hostage. And if I'm so afraid of going to hell, I'm going to show up and I'm going to tithe and I'm going to give money and I'm going to listen to what you have to say because I need to make sure that I'm making all of the right moves to secure my place in heaven. Like the Mormon church has all these like different levels of heaven that you can and can't get into depending on like what you do or don't do.
Yeah, I remember years ago, I had a cousin who she had a spiritual awakening to some degree. She really just kind of ran away from the church like that. She had just like a really negative experience with a very conservative church that she grew up in. And she was talking to some of my other older family members about like some of her beliefs. And I remember talking to one of those family members that she had been talking to kind of off to the side later. And he was basically like, yeah, what she's saying, it sounds good and everything, but I just don't want to go to hell. I'm scared to even like go down that road. And I was just like, that stuck with me. I was just like, like even if there is potentially something that you see as truth, you're going to shun it because of that fear, you know?
I think I had a little bit of that early on in our spiritual journey where I was just like, is this all an elaborate scheme to get me off my Christian path?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like a really hard, it felt like a fork in the road.
Yeah.
It was like, where are you going? So yeah, if you want to know more about the concept of hell, we talked about it at length in episode 69, but basically you're scared of punishment. And so it's a very like childlike way of thinking about your religion with God, where it's like, I don't want to be punished, but you're not really understanding why you're supposed to do or not do what you're supposed to do. Like you don't have your own ethical guidebook to manage your own life.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of just like, these are the rules and I have to abide by them, which isn't a very evolved way to act. Back to your solar plexus, right? Like the ability to act.
All right. So we wanted to focus really about some of the problematic areas of this new age spirituality stuff. So let's go there, right? Let's say you've had your spiritual awakening, you fully jumped into the metaphysical. What are some things to watch out for in this new space? Well, there are quite a few, but we wanted to focus on 3 of them today. First, we talked about this before in episode 43, but spiritual bypassing is a common one and is something that, I see a lot and I feel like we got to talk about it, right? You think that, now you're in this world, you're supposed to be happy all the time. Everything's supposed to be high vibe, good vibes only,
And I think an example of this is how often the first thing that a lot of people want to jump on is manifestation, right? You're like, oh, the universe has been unlocked. And now I can call in money and like everything's going to be amazing.
Make it rain.
I want to tell that joke that Mick just did, but it would take too long. Maybe I'll do it on TikTok. But anyways, I can call in a new car, a new job, a new boo, like sign me up, right? I'm all about the law of attraction. Let's get it. And one of the major keys to manifestation, like once you start delving into all of that, is to stay in the frequency of whatever you're calling in. But then people will be like, oh, set it and forget it. Like ask for the thing and then just forget about it. And so I'm just like, wait, what? How am I supposed to stay in the frequency and forget? And I ain't forgot. I need this money for my bills. But anyways, so you're trying to get married, right? But your boo breaks up with you. This is like the boo you thought, oh, I'm just waiting on him to propose, right? Or she, her.
Yeah.
Equal opportunity. So your boo breaks up with you and you should be heartbroken. This is the person that you thought you were going to be with for the rest of your life. And instead of feeling that heartbreak and mourning that loss,
being a human,
because it's sad and you had a lot of feelings invested and things didn't work out the way that you planned, you're like, I'm on Hinge the next day.
Swipe.
And you're telling yourself, I'm keeping the frequency, right? Because I said I wanted to get married and that's what I'm manifesting. And so I'm going to dump that 0 and give me a hero. And the best way to do that is just like on to the next. So you're trying to keep the frequency of your new boo. And while the person who broke up with you might not be for you, and that's their loss, you're really just bottling up your feelings of that heartbreak and you're not dealing with them. And they'll likely come out later when you really don't want them to. And you get triggered by something and then you just kind of fall apart later. So you're really delaying the inevitable.
What them old people used to say? The best way to get over a man is to get under a new one, right?
Who said that?
That's what them old people used to say.
Old people used to say that? I think anytime you're feeling that urge to spiritual bypass, it's a good time to remember that life is about duality and that there's the good and the bad. And you're attempting, I think that was like the biggest lesson for me in the spiritual journey, is that you're trying to roll with it. You're trying not to like completely let anything derail you off of the journey of life. Like you're just trying to like, okay, that sucked, but I'm going to see how this all unfolds and I'm just going to keep moving with it. But I'm not going to bypass any of the feelings that happen. But I'm also not going to dwell in any of the really dark, dense, uncomfortable feelings either, because that's not really healthy for you either. So trying to find balance.
Okay. So I think the second thing we wanted to mention in this episode is this elevation that we see a lot with the figure of the guru. And it's problematic in a lot of ways. I mean, I think one, there's a lot of great voices in the space, and we resonate with them. I'm sure a lot of you guys resonate with some of these people, but a lot of times people will elevate them to where they're not even seen as human, right? We have to remember that any of these folks are just people, and they're imperfect humans just like us. And some of the stuff they say can very much be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is not unique to New Age spirituality. This is not unique to any religion. I think you can see it in a lot of different spaces. You can see it in the yoga space. We've definitely seen it in churches. Mm-hmm. I think, you can see it in work. You can see it everywhere where people just put these people on a pedestal, and it gets to the point where the person can do no wrong. Mm-hmm. We definitely see this with celebrities, right? For sure. That you have documented proof, multiple people saying these things, multiple stories.
Yeah.
And people are like, I'm going to stick beside him. And it's just like...
Because he can sing good.
That one. There is a very large church in Dallas, and for all intents and purposes, this lead pastor looks, smells, walks like a narcissist. And there are some very ugly allegations about him dating back decades. Mm-hmm. And it's documented and it's been investigated. And like multiple people have stories. And it's like, baby, where there's smoke, it's an inferno. Mm-hmm. And he still packs it out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. People are still going. I think sometimes it also can get to the point of, if I turn my back on them, what does that say about me? Because then I would have to admit that I was following this very fallible person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Especially in traditional religion, where we were speaking to earlier about how a lot of times it felt like you have to go through these people to reach spirit. Mm-hmm. And if the person you're going through to reach spirit has some things wrong with them, mm-hmm. It's like you almost are questioning your ability to connect mm-hmm. with spirit now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's just, the guru that's maybe manipulating people or abusing people, and you were a follower. But like your life wasn't really on the line. Like you were kind of doing your regular life any other time. And maybe they just had a TikTok and then some racist tweets came out or something like that. But then it can go a step further where this guru creates a cult mm-hmm. type of organization.
Yeah. And we've definitely seen that in the New Age spirituality space, right? There was the Heaven's Gate cult, and they were the ones who got those specific pair of Nikes. And they committed mass suicide. And basically the cult believed in kind of this New Age idea that aliens were somehow going to come back to pick them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on this one, just be wary of becoming a follower. And like even that word, right? Especially with like social media, it's like, how many followers do you have? Mm-hmm. And it's very like culty type of lingo that we use. Be wary of that, of becoming a follower of anyone and giving them an unhealthy say in your life. Ask yourself, if something terrible came out about this person, would I believe it? And if not, why is that? And like, why are you so devoted? And why do you have so much invested in this person that you probably don't know on an intimate level? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like I think if somebody came to me said something about me, I'm like, no, I intimately know this person. Like there's room for doubt. Mm-hmm. But if it's well documented, baby, I'm sorry. They say you did that shit. You did that shit. I'm a former lawyer and I still believe in facts. Okay.
I just want to add one thing to that about the guru. Jen and I are continuing to kind of build our voice and our presence in kind of this wellness spiritual space. And we've had a lot of conversations back and forth about how we want to show up. And we're not trying to be anybody's guru is basically what it boils down to. We have a company that we named The Inner Victory, where we do a lot of our like yoga and sound healing and Reiki sessions and events and stuff. Quick aside, you can follow us at The Inner Victory if you want more of that content. But I bring up the point of that company's name because in naming it, we want it to be clear that, you know, we aren't the ones with the answers. And we essentially want to hold up a mirror for you to dive into your own energy and kind of find the victory within yourself. So yeah, our goal here is illumination. We'll show you a path, not the path. If anyone says they know the path, they're lying to you. And yeah, we want to just help people find the answers within themselves.
Yeah. It was a friend of ours that gave us kind of that definition of a cult that I was like, whoa, where a person is like, I have the truth and I'm the only one with the truth. That's like important, right? Like I am the only one with the truth for you.
Exactly.
Watch out. Side eye, bombastic side eye. The last thing we'll touch on is religious zealotry. And you might hear that and think, wait, I'm not necessarily in a specific religion, so how can I become a zealot? But have you ever met somebody who recently converted to a new faith? And I actually, back in the day, I used to say, I wish I wasn't raised Christian. I wish I came to it later and converted because they're so sure. I used to say, that wasn't Is that weird?
No, it's not. It's not weird. It's just you said they so sure. Like I could just see them.
They were. Because I was like, I have known nothing else. You have gone out and you've seen all the bullshit and you came in here and you were like,
yep,
this is my story. This is my song. And they know. They just know. But what I might have been seeing was zealotry.
Yeah.
And I've seen this with people who've converted to other religions as well,
Absolutely.
right? It's all they talk about. So I was with my girlfriends. This is back in the day. And one of it was like a friend of a friend, her boo had recently converted to Islam. And we had all gone out, but then like we left and like we were like in a lounge or something, like somewhere where we could all just like sit around and talk. And so we were just kind of sitting around and Bands Will Make Her Dance was the hot song of the day. And Stop Dancing.
That was my song.
And me and my girlfriend were like, it's such a good song. And so we kind of started singing it to each other like, Bands Will Make Her Dance. And he was just like, I cannot believe that y'all would sing that filth. And our friend was like, baby, you were in the club 6 weeks ago. Like, you just converted. Like, cut it out. But it was very much so he was just like, I can't believe. And I had such a bad taste in my mouth about that guy from that interaction. He was just like, well, now that I've converted. And it was just like, you heathens. And he was like, well, baby, you didn't have to come out. You could have been at home. Apparently, it's very, very common, though, because you've converted into something, particularly as an adult, right? And you're like, this is the way that I'm going to go. And this is amazing. And I have to tell everybody about it. And it's actually very common, but it should kind of start to die down a little bit. You know, it's like, have you seen my new favorite thing?
It's like the freshman that comes home from their first semester of college and wants to tell you about Psych 1, all the things they learned, right? Like it's the same thing.
But a true religious zealot, like there's a little flavor of this, but a zealot takes it to the extreme. They like too much sauce, you know?
So I think some signs of religious zealotry include intense, often uncompromising devotion to their newfound beliefs, which you covered. 2, a sense of superiority. My man who wasn't feeling bands. How can you not feel bands, though? They believe that their religion holds the one true answer and that they are holier or more righteous than others. Then intolerance, a judgmental attitude toward those with different beliefs, and a tendency to proselytize or evangelize aggressively.
I'm just thinking about like how you get there, right? I think traditional religion is like you have to believe to these certain things, you have to convert or whatever, so you go to heaven, right? So you don't go to hell. And so then when you get to that point, where you like, this is the religion I'm going to choose. I'm going to heaven. I have to, like, all these other people are going to die and go to hell. I have to save them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in New Age spirituality, it's like when you come to it, you're like, all of these people are sheeple.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know that, like, oh, you don't like your job? You could just manifest a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Could you do an affirmation practice once in a while? You'd probably feel better. And you start to get this, like, this sense of superiority, right? There can be this feeling that you've unlocked the universe, specifically like New Age spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I know now how the 3D works with the 4D, with the 5D, with the star seeds, with the human design. And I am free to live my life in the way that is in alignment with myself, in the way that my soul decided to come down into this body at this time. Actually, all of those things I do believe, but you just kind of sound arrogant.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, now you're walking around and you're like, oh my gosh, look at the way her shoulders are hunched. Closed heart chakra. Yeah. Don't you see that? She really needs to, like, go to yoga and get her chakras aligned and, like, really get into that. Like, you over here, you and everybody else's business. Mind you, you haven't done any shadow work.
Yeah.
You hadn't gone to therapy, but you got a rainbow chakra bracelet, and now you can tell everybody else what they need to do.
Yeah, that sense of superiority, it really, like, takes me to TikTok. And there were all these videos that I was getting served on my algorithm. I know you were getting served on your algorithm that were discussing this idea that there were certain people who were awakened, right? Who were now conscious, and they were keeping their vibrations high, and they were basically going to be part of the new earth, quote unquote. And we would, in that, those folks who were in that vibration would be able to see others on the denser 3D, but they wouldn't be able to see us, and we would escape all of the denser frequencies and, like, go to this special place. And I was just like, come on, bro.
Yeah. I think I was seeing all of that for like a month.
Yeah.
And I ended up seeing a video in response to that I was like, oh yeah. And it was saying that belief in particular was very problematic because basically it was the rapture-like event for New Age spirituality. Heaven's Gate, the cult we talked about earlier, they thought the aliens were going to come pick them up at a certain date. It's just another type of belief that the chosen ones are going to get access to some form of utopia, and everyone else is going to be left out.
Yeah, it's ego popping back up in New Age spirituality is how I see it. Ego wants to tell us that we're right and you're wrong. Ego wants to say that I'm better than you. I'm somehow going to take this place that is different from your place because I am so evolved and so awesome and so high vibrational, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that would show up in a space where people are constantly being asked to evaluate and disassociate themselves from their ego.
It was interesting how, to your point about the ego, how even with all of these like philosophical books about really getting to like the truth of your soul and who you are and past lives and all of these things, that you would still seek out a way to be like, how you hating from outside a club when you can't even get in? You know what I mean? That you would use that in a way to like close the door on other people. Yeah, it really just kind of felt like the Left Behind books.
Have we talked about this before?
Maybe.
Did you read the books?
I didn't. My mother was obsessed with them.
Okay, I read like the first 3 books.
Were they well written?
To my young mind at the time, I think they were well written, but I don't know if I like spun the block. I would still think they're well written.
I'm gonna see if they on Kindle Unlimited.
It was interesting. They had me. It was like they had some good cliffhangers in there.
My mama was stressed about them tattoos, the mark of the beast. I was like, Lord Jesus, please, ma'am. You want to talk about fear?
Yeah.
running away to the country.
Yeah.
When 9/9 was going into the 2000. I saw so many people get saved at this little itty bitty country church on, what do they call it? On watch night.
On watch night. Oh my goodness.
Baby, they were shook. I ain't seen them in church since.
What were we watching?
The man said, "You ain't about to watch me get left."
It's like, it reminds me of Game of Thrones, the Night's Watch. Like, what, we looking at the wall for something? Like, what is going on?
11:59 going into 12.
No, but for real, if you end up reading the Left Behind books, or just one of them, you should do like a little TikTok, like just kind of breaking down some of the stuff that's in there. I feel like that would be entertaining. I would watch.
Oh, you talking to me? You want me to do that?
Yeah.
All right, I might. So yeah, like we said, there are a lot of like red flags and like things to look out for. Some honorable mentions before we go: restrictive diets. You know, when you start changing things about yourself without really checking in with like, do I really want to do this? Is this a decision that I'm coming to on my own? Or did someone say like, oh, you should really follow this diet, or you should really dress this way, or you should really do this, this, and this. And you're like, yes, I will do that, because you think that that's the persona that you need to have to fit into this mold of what New Age spirituality is.
Got it.
So, you know, when you start making dramatic changes to like your diet, the way you dress, cutting out friends and family, that's like a big red flag, even though some of them people could be toxic. But like, talk to a therapist and, you know, get some help on that. Spending a bunch of money on programming and like different things that like someone you follow, like just these are some things to like watch out for that I think we can like be very eager when we come into a spiritual journey that can kind of trip us up along the way. Most importantly, not doing your research, which we're going to talk about in a follow-up episode. Well, all right. That's the show. I think we ran a little long, but it's okay. We had a lot to talk about in this one. Friendly reminder to join our mailing list, and don't miss the next Chakras and Shotguns newsletter.
And finally, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you listen.
Namaste.